Bitterness is a real contradiction, isn't it? It's a taste that nature designed to be a warning, something to push us away and signal danger. And yet, so many of us go looking for it every single day.
So why do we do that? Why would we evolve to willingly seek out a flavor that our own biology is telling us to reject? I mean, think about your morning coffee or a square of really dark chocolate, maybe a hoppy beer. This is the central paradox we're going to unpack.
When you lay it out, the contrast is pretty stark. On one side, you have this primal biological signal for poison, danger, stay away. And on the other, it's a huge part of our cultural experience, something we link with pleasure and even ritual. This is really the story of how a survival warning got turned into a sophisticated enjoyment.
To really understand how that shift happened, we have to go right back to the beginning, back to the evolutionary reason we can even taste bitterness at all. You see, for most of human history, a bitter taste meant just one thing: poison. A lot of the toxic compounds you find in plants are intensely bitter, so our ability to detect it wasn't about liking a flavor, it was a life-saving alarm system. If something tasted bitter, the smartest and safest thing to do was to spit it out immediately.
And here's something that shows just how critical this was for our survival. Our bodies have over 25 different kinds of receptors just for bitterness. Now that's way more than we have for sweetness or any other taste. Evolution clearly wanted to make absolutely sure we were paying attention to this one particular signal.
But here's the twist. That alarm system, as good as it is, isn't perfectly accurate. Not every single thing that's bitter is a deadly poison. Some of it is harmless, and some of it is actually good for us. Think about the antioxidants in dark leafy greens. And that little gap, that imperfection in the system, is exactly where human culture found an opening to start learning and adapting.
So this imperfection is what takes us from straight biology into the psychology of it all, into how our brains can actually learn to override that powerful initial instinct to just say no. We call this acquiring a taste, and it happens in a few clear stages. First, you get that natural initial rejection. But then, with repeated exposure, something that was unpleasant just starts to feel familiar. After that, the brain starts to connect that taste with some kind of positive outcome. And finally, that connection actually rewires our perception, turning it into real learned pleasure. So the brain forms this link by connecting two totally separate experiences. On one hand, there's the taste itself, which might cause some discomfort, maybe even a tiny bit of stress. But at the same time, the brain is noticing the effect, the stimulation you get from caffeine, the change in perception from alcohol, or that rich satisfaction from cacao. And over time, that connection gets so strong that the bitterness itself becomes the cue. The taste isn't just a taste anymore. It's a signal that the reward, that energy boost or relaxation or focus, is coming. The bitterness actually starts to mean that what you're having is potent, that it's working.
Now, this learning process doesn't just happen inside our own heads in a vacuum. It's deeply connected to our social world, where bitterness starts to take on a really powerful symbolic meaning.
Think about it for a second. Children almost always reject bitter flavors, right? They love sweet things. So the ability to get past that instinct and actually appreciate bitterness is often seen as a sign of growing up. It suggests a more developed palate, a sense of control, and just the kind of worldliness that comes with experience.
And we can see this play out in rituals all over the world. That morning coffee that kicks off the workday, the social bonding that happens over a beer, that sophisticated after-dinner digestive that's supposed to help with digestion. These are all cultural habits built around a shared enjoyment of bitterness.
So much of this is learned by watching others. We see people we look up to enjoying these things. We hear a certain coffee described as having complex notes, or a craft beer having an interesting hoppy profile. When bitterness is framed not as a negative, but as a sign of complexity, our brains are primed to experience it that way. Our expectation literally changes our perception.
So all of this brings us to the final step of the journey, where a preference that we learn slowly evolves into a conscious choice, something that becomes a real part of our personal identity. When someone chooses to drink their coffee black, their spirit's neat, or they go looking for that extra dark chocolate with a high cacao percentage, it's about more than just taste. It's about choosing the pure, more intense version. It's a deliberate decision to embrace the bitterness, not to cover it up. That choice becomes a kind of personal statement. It says, I've gone through the process of acquiring this taste. I've moved past that initial rejection. I get the complexity here, and now I'm actively choosing it. It's a quiet way of declaring your experience. And that right there, that completes the transformation. What started out as a universal biological warning sign for poison has been totally reinterpreted, rewired, and reframed by our brains and by our cultures. It's not just an instinct anymore, it's a preference.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought. When we reach for that bitter dark chocolate or that black coffee, are we just enjoying a flavor, or are we taking part in one of the most subtle but profound examples of human culture winning out over our own primal biology? It's really a testament to our amazing ability to learn, to adapt, and to find pleasure in the very place where nature only intended a warning.